Are you someone who loves to travel or ever thought about going to Tokyo? In this episode, we will teach you how to travel in luxury without spending luxury prices and all about my recent trip to Japan. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Lisha Taylor.
And I'm Dr. Brittany Halford.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time.
Lisha, can we talk about one of the most important money moves we've made as doctors? And I don't know about you, but for me, when I think about this, it's actually insurance. Yes, I know it's not sexy, but it is absolutely essential, especially disability insurance.
Facts. I got mine right after med school, before residency even started. And let me tell you, Prati Botto at PKA Insurance Group made the whole process so smooth. He actually cared, broke down everything, explained the fine print, and got me the best policy for the best price.
And what I love is that he treats everyone like that residents, attendings, even docs on visas. He literally got you. He's super responsive, super knowledgeable. And if there's a better deal out there, he will tell you.
Oh, and if you're healthy, you could get approved for up to $10 million in life insurance. So not just disability insurance in only 5 minutes. No labs, no hassle.
So if you're serious about protecting your income and your family, call 1-800-258-1018.
Or email pradeep at pkainsurance.com.
Well, Lisha, I know that you just went on a luxurious birthday vacation, and probably like some of our listeners, we're a little bit jealous. Please give us the deets. What happened on your trip? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I went to Japan. I have to be honest, wasn't even really on my bucket list because about 10 years ago, I flew through Japan on my way to Vietnam and I had a really long layover, about 8 or 10 hours. And so I actually left the airport and I kind of walked around Japan. I found a tour guide. And so I had technically already been there, is my point. So this wasn't really on my bucket list, but, was trying to figure out a place to go around my birthday. I had some vacation days to use. And in the travel group I'm in, a lot of people had been talking about going to Japan. And so I thought maybe this would be a great trip. And I happened to be able to find some really good hotel deals, which I talk about in the episode, and was able to make it happen. But yeah, I just came back from Japan. I spent 8 days there, went to Tokyo and Kyoto, traveled mainly on points. And so this was an incredible kind of birthday trip. We went to Disneyland, which was substantially cheaper there than it is here in America. I went to some museums there, toured some of the famous tourist attractions, and saw a lot of the really iconic architecture there in Japan. Had really amazing food. I experienced a bidet for the first time, and now it's on my list of things to purchase here in America. So yeah, good food, great experiences, all around fantastic birthday trip.
Well, Alicia, that sounds fantastic. The first thought was, did you go by yourself? But then you said we. So I'm assuming that you did not go by yourself. And then the second thought is that is so funny that you're like, I experienced a bidet for the first.
Yeah, no, it was great. Have you used a bidet before?
So it's so funny because we have a rental property that we're using as a long-term rental property. And our past tenants put one on the toilet, but I had not used it. One of my friends who was helping me kind of clean out the place before the new tenants arrived, she was like, oh, we have to take this back to your house. I did not take it back, but now I'm like, dang, maybe I should have tried it and taken it off the toilet and brought it to my home. So no, I have not used it. No, I haven't tried it. And clearly I should have, because I'll have to wait until these tenants move out to bring it over.
Yeah, it was great. For those who are not aware, bidet is a type of toilet that is very common in Japan. And so unlike the toilets in America, the bidets in Japan, first of all, they have seat warmers. So you sit down on the seat and the seat is warm. Water kind of sprouts up from the toilet that is warm and can oscillate, go back and forth, and do all sorts of cleaning maneuvers, if you will. And I thought to myself, whoa, this feels different, but I could get used to this. All of the toilets, even the public toilets in Japan,
Oh, wow.
are bidets. The ones in the hotels, public restrooms. When we went to Disney, those were the toilets there. And so it was really interesting just I was like, whoa. Another thing that I thought was really cool was that it's very easy to navigate. I do not speak Japanese, but most signs in Japan are in Japanese and in English. And a lot of people in
Mm.
Japan speak both languages. And so it was very easy to navigate, ask for help, get around. The subway system is very efficient, very on time. And so, yeah, if you are someone who's thinking about traveling to Japan, I highly recommend it. So, those are some of my fears when I'm traveling to another country is can I get around? Can I navigate? Can I speak the
Mhm.
language? Those sorts of things. And I found it really, really easy to do so. It wasn't too expensive, which was another great thing. I mentioned Disneyland. I think when you do the conversion, I think we paid like 40 or $50 per ticket to enter the park versus in America, it costs like over $100 a person to get it. You're nodding your head as someone who has two kids. You're like, yep, it's expensive. Not so in Japan. So yeah, it was great. I went with my boyfriend and he's really tall. And so the crazy thing was that a lot of people in Japan are not as tall. And so one of the roller coasters, we actually got in line and they measured him because they were like, we think you're too tall for the ride. He's like 6'4", which is like tall, but not like, I don't know, the tallest person in the world. But they measured him 5 times as we were standing in line. Like, we don't think you're going to be able to fit. So that was a first for him. And for me, I was like, whoa, I guess you are. I mean, I knew you were tall, but sheesh. So that was an interesting experience. The food there was super cheap. Sushi rolls were like $3. All the food and snacks were super cheap and affordable. So I ended up trying a lot of things and eating way too much. I walked a lot. I think I averaged like 15,000 steps a day when I was in Japan. But yeah, I had a great time. I used your favorite tool, ChatGPT, to plan like a day trip to Kyoto, and it turned out very well. I was like, Brittany might be onto something. It was great.
Look at you using technology. Oh my goodness. I'm so proud of you. I'm very happy that you also mentioned just the ability to navigate and also the walkability of a city. Whenever I'm traveling, I want to go to some place that's safe, some place that I can do a nice run and not feel threatened at all. And if I get lost, which I often do when I go for a run, that I can ask someone who would be willing to help. Where we live in Boston, the school that Brooke goes to is actually like a dedicated Japanese school. So she's actually learning some Japanese in her school, and she has a lot of friends who are from Japan. So this is a place that is on our list just because of like that familiarity and connection that she has. So once KJ starts school, we'll probably take a trip, but it's a long trip, right? How long was your flight from Atlanta?
So we did direct flights, which I can talk about why we did that in a little bit, but we did direct flights from Atlanta to Tokyo and it was like 13 hours.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I would need them to be a little bit older
Right.
before.
You're like 13 hours on a flight with my kids is like not necessarily a
Mm-mm.
luxury experience. So I get it.
No. All right. Well, I'm excited to jump into learning all about how you booked this trip, how much you paid for things, where you all stayed, all the details. Because if our listeners have been listening for a while, you all know that this is not my strongest suit. And I have actually never done this in the way that Lisha does it. So I am here for this episode and give me your itinerary so that I don't have to do the work. Okay.
As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long-term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve. So I guess we could start off with our financial focus for today, which is kind of how I saved a lot of money booking this trip, how I was able to take this trip in an affordable way. So I think that sometimes when you think about traveling on a budget, oftentimes the assumption is I'm going to sacrifice quality in order to save money. And at this stage in my life and in my career, I like really nice things. And that includes nice hotels, that includes premium seating on flights. So one of the things that's important to me is obviously fiscal responsibility. I want to make sure that I'm not spending too much, but I also want to make sure that I'm having a good time and really enjoying myself when I'm on vacation. And so being able to really balance how can I save money but still travel in luxury and have quality experiences is something that I've tried to get better at over time. And I think I might have done a decent job, at least, on this trip. So I am also really excited to kind of delve into this topic today.
Okay, so take us to step one. We have the idea that we want to travel to Japan. What did you do next?
Whenever I've made up my mind that I want to go somewhere or it's strong consideration, I start thinking, what is an affordable way for me to do this? And at this point in my life, usually that means using some sort of credit card points or travel hacking. And so that was my next step. I said, okay, I think I want to go to Japan. Actually, it's my boyfriend's idea. He wanted to go. And I thought, oh, okay, well, let me see if I can book this sort of trip on point. So that was my first thought. And usually when I'm doing this, I'm looking at one of two things. I'm looking to see if I can find affordable flights or affordable hotels. And for this trip, I looked at affordable hotels first because I knew that, I probably wouldn't go there at that time if I couldn't get some sort of flight deal or some sort of hotel deal. So I first looked at hotels. I have a lot of Chase points. So I have a Chase credit card that accumulates Chase points, and the Chase credit card points can transfer to Hyatt hotels. So like there's Hilton hotels and Marriott hotels. There's also Hyatt hotels. And I looked at Hyatt first because their award chart is much more favorable. What do I mean by that? The amount of points that it takes to book a hotel stay for a Hyatt hotel is drastically cheaper or drastically fewer points than it might take to book a hotel like a Hilton hotel or a Marriott hotel. And I had heard really good things about the Hyatt hotels in Japan. So I wanted to see and check there first. This is the brand of hotels that will cost the least amount of points. Let me see if there are still some hotels that are available to book on points in the areas of Japan, in the areas of Tokyo that I want to stay. So that was my first step. I literally went onto the Hyatt website, logged in with my username and password, clicked that I want to book things with points, and kind of searched all the hotels that might be available during my dates of travel. Tokyo is huge. It's kind of like a New York, if you will. And so it's huge. There's different kind of areas of the city. And so I wasn't exactly sure at that time which area of the city we would be staying in. And so I just kind of wanted to look at different areas. And I saw that there were lots of hotels still available for me to book on points. And this was maybe 3 months out from the trip, which was the time frame that we had decided we might want to go to Tokyo. I had planned to go to travel at the end of June. I think I started looking maybe in February or March, if you will. And I logged onto Hyatt, was able to see that, hey, I can book a lot of different hotels on points even at this time. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I think this trip is a go. Because if I can book the hotels on points, then I won't have to pay any money in cash. So when you book things on points, you don't have to pay the taxes, you don't have to pay the resort fees, there's nothing. Literally, it's all free. And so I was able to find hotels for the entire 7 nights, 8 days that we were going to be in Japan. And so at that point, I kind of went to our travel group that I'm in and sort of looked at other people's travel trips to Japan to see which hotels that they stay in. All right, let me look at this specific hotel or that specific hotel. We ended up staying in Ginza, which is a part of Tokyo. It's kind of a more expensive luxury area of the city, if you will. That's where a lot of the Louis Vuitton stores, Gucci stores, all that kind of stuff is located. But we stayed there for a few nights. I also reserved a hotel in Tokyo Bay, which is where Disney was, because I knew that we wanted to go to Disney, and those hotels in that area had like free shuttles to and from the park and things like that. There was another hotel that I really wanted to experience just because it was a more luxurious hotel, had a spa and all of these other things. And so I looked and saw that that one was available to book on points. And so my point here, pun intended, is that my first step when I had decided that I wanted to travel to Japan was to see if I could find hotel deals on points. I searched the Hyatt system because those tend to be the most affordably priced, if you will, and I was able to find them.
All right. So, what I love about this is one, you kind of started out with some background foundational information of who has the best deals when it goes to leveraging the points that you have and which points can you transfer to that partner or that system to book just using the points. So I have heard about Hyatt and that they have a pretty affordable ecosystem, but I didn't know that Chase was one of those kind of point systems that I could transfer directly to Hyatt. So now I'm thinking, okay, I have a Chase credit card. So if I'm thinking about going to Tokyo, then I'm going to look in the Hyatt hotels and start there first because we usually use Marriott. And so now I know, okay, Japan, Chase, Hyatt. And then the second thing that I like about your process is you didn't just book any hotel, you went and looked for recommendations from a trusted source and going into that travel points group of women physicians and seeing how they've done this in the past to use that as a guide to your search. Because at least for me, a lot of this feels very much overwhelming. And so having this process of, okay, I know that this is going to give me a good experience with Hyatt. And then who can I go to look to see where they've already been and what their experience has been? Because sometimes you just don't know. I use TripAdvisor a lot, but oftentimes you don't know those people. So you don't know what type of recommendations or reviews they're actually giving.
Yeah, so that's kind of my process. You mentioned that you usually travel with Marriott. I like Marriott hotels. Who doesn't want to stay at the Ritz or the Four Seasons? I mean, come on now. But the problem with Marriott is that their ward chart is not as favorable. It costs like a gazillion points for even just one hotel stay. And so you just don't
Mhm.
get as much bang for your buck, if you will. If I can't find good deals on Hyatt, my next step is actually Hilton hotels. I think that Hyatt is great. They have the most favorable award chart, but Hyatt is not everywhere. They don't have the footprint that Marriott and Hilton do. And so there are certain times where I can't book a Hyatt hotel because maybe they don't have a hotel in the location or whatever. And in which case I will need to look at a different hotel brand. My next thing of choice is usually Hilton because their chart is not as favorable as Hyatt, but is more favorable than Marriott. Brittany, you mentioned in the past that your husband really likes luxurious hotels. If you were looking at a Hilton branded hotel, maybe you might look at something like the Waldorf or the Conrad. Those are kind of their Hilton, their luxury brands. And so for a different travel trip that I'm currently planning, I'm actually looking at Hilton. And if you're wondering which points transfer to Hilton, American Express points do. And in terms of Marriott, I believe Chase points, maybe American Express, I can't remember off the top of my head, do transfer to Marriott. And so if you're someone who's a Marriott person or Hilton person or a Hyatt person, if you have Chase or American Express points, you can usually transfer them directly to those hotels. It's just when you look at the award chart, you might find that the Hyatt hotels require drastically fewer points than the other hotels. Another thing I want to put on your radar, Brittany, is you have children and I do not. And maybe this is a trip to Japan that you would want to take solely with your husband or solely with another person. But if, for instance, you were thinking, I want to actually travel with my family, I would highly recommend Hyatt hotels because their suites are better. So when you travel outside of the United States, oftentimes you cannot just put 3 or 4 people in a hotel room like you can in America. If it's you, your husband, and your 2 kids, that's 4 people. If you travel to Europe, you can't just put 4 people in a hotel. That is not allowed. You would need to have to buy 2 hotel rooms. And then it's like, okay, well, now one of you is staying in one room with one kid and one of you staying in another room with another kid, which kind of defeats the purpose of being on vacation together as a family. And so the way to get around it is to book suites that allow for more people in a room. And I'm mentioning all of this because Hyatt hotel suites are also a lot more affordable. One of the hotels we stayed at was in Tokyo Bay, which is near Disney. And I actually booked a suite, even though it was just me and my boyfriend, because I wanted to see what it was like. And it was huge. We could have fit 3, probably more people in that suite. It was kind of like having 2 hotel rooms joined together, essentially. There were 2 bathrooms. There was 2 separate rooms, one you could close off and all of that sort of thing. And so if you're thinking about traveling with your family, you might want to consider booking a suite so you all can stay in the same sort of room-ish together. And the suites are much more affordable if you book them through Hyatt hotels than if you try to book them through Marriott or Hilton. So just wanted to give you that tidbit.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a question. So, before you actually transferred the points from Chase to Hyatt, you looked for the hotels, right? You looked to see how
Yeah.
many points it required and which hotels had availability. After you identified all of that information, do you mind just kind of walking us through that process of transferring the points? Because when we have the reward credit cards, I know they really recommend that we use their portal to book because you can get 5x the value of your points if you use the Amex portal or if you use the Chase portal. But what I'm hearing is that you're not doing that. So can you just walk us through that process?
Yeah, so you're right. You can book things through the portal. I try to avoid doing that because if you need to change something, it's oftentimes difficult to do that. And also, it's very hard. Usually, you don't build status in these hotel chains if you book through portals. And having hotel status, similar to having airline status, makes you eligible for free upgrades and free breakfast and those sorts of perks that are really valuable. Some credit cards will automatically give you status. For example, if I'm remembering correctly, in the past, you told me that either you or your husband have an American Express Platinum card. I have an American Express Business Platinum card, so kind of similar, just the business version. And it automatically gives me gold status at Hilton and at Marriott and things like that. And when you have gold status at Hilton, it comes with free breakfasts at the hotels and things like that. And so you want to be able to build status, or at least I do. It also gives you access to hotel lounges. So similar to how there are airport lounges, there are also hotel lounges. And in these hotel lounges is usually where the free breakfast is if you have status. It's also usually where they'll do like a cocktail hour, so you can get free drinks and snacks and things like that each day when you're at the hotel. Usually, if you have some sort of status, sometimes it will come with free access to certain parts of the spa. And so there are a lot of perks to not booking things through the portal. How I did this is I went to my credit card kind of app, logged in, went to the area where it showed me how many points I had, and then redeem rewards is usually how it's stated. There's different things that you can do. You can go to the travel portal, you can cash them out, you can book a gift card, but there's also a button that says transfer points. And when you click that button, you can search all the different transfer partners that Chase might have or American Express might have. In this case, Chase, and you'll see Hyatt. And you can click the button that says transfer to Hyatt, and it will ask you what your Hyatt loyalty number is, and it'll ask you how many points you want to transfer. Usually there's some security questions to make sure that you're not like stealing somebody else's points, but essentially it's pretty easy, and the points transfer instantly. So I clicked that button, did it, and the points were immediately in my Hyatt loyalty account. And then once the points were in my Hyatt loyalty account, I booked the hotels that I saw. Different hotels, given their location and their like degree of luxury, if you will cost different amount of points. We were in Tokyo for 8 days, and I think we spent 7 nights, if that makes sense, in Tokyo. And we had different kinds of hotels. The hotel that we stayed in Ginza was like the prime location. It's right in the center of Tokyo. It's a great location. The hotel in Tokyo Bay was near Disney, a lot cheaper because it wasn't in the city center. And then another really luxurious hotel in a different part of Tokyo that I'm blanking on the name. But my point is that we stayed in different kind of areas. Would I do that again next time? Maybe not. Maybe I'd only transfer hotels once instead of twice. But I'm mentioning all of this because the total amount of points that I spent for a 7-day trip was maybe like 180,000 points. So it's not exactly a small amount of points, but it's not a large amount of points for a 7-night trip, especially when 2 of those nights were in a suite, 2 nights were in this luxurious hotel that came with spa access. I didn't book the cheapest rooms, if you will, with the points, and I still spent under 200,000 points for over a week in Japan.
That's phenomenal. Thank you for pointing all that out. I love that consideration of, yes, you can book through your portal, but you don't build status and you want to be able to retain that status. So that's something that I had not considered before, which is important if you're going to be really utilizing one particular brand frequently so that you can build that status and get the most bang for your buck. Okay, so now we have the hotel book. What did you do next? What about the flights?
One of the things that I think is really helpful is that when you're using credit card points, your travel budget goes further because, at least in this case, I wasn't using cash for the hotels. I had a little bit more cash to spend on flights. If I had planned this trip in advance, I would have actually booked business class flights on Japan Airlines. When you're traveling to Japan, you go across the country to the West Coast. If you're already based on the West Coast, like in California or something, the flight is shorter than if you're based on the East Coast, because usually you're flying from the East Coast to the West Coast and then to Japan, if that makes sense. And so if I had booked and planned this trip in advance, I would have actually booked a business class flight from LAX to Tokyo. There's a direct flight from LAX to Tokyo in business class that you can book. Japan Airlines is a great airline. Singapore Airlines does a direct flight there. Actually, I think it was a Hawaiian Airlines or Alaskan Airlines that had a direct flight from Seattle to Tokyo. So there were lots of direct flights actually from the West Coast. My boyfriend was like, I don't want to have to do a layover. He was like, I would rather fly direct from Atlanta to Tokyo and fly not in business class than take a layover to fly in business class. And so because of that reason, we actually did not do business class on this flight. We did premium select, which is kind of like one rung under on Delta. So for Delta, at least, there's like regular economy, there's comfort plus, there's premium select, which is what we were in, and then there's business class. Premium select, the seat reclines quite a bit, but doesn't recline fully enough to be in a full bed. So it reclines a lot more than like your average seat. The way this is described to me is like, think about a first class flight on a domestic flight. You know, the first class seats, they're pretty big. That's essentially what we were in, and the seat reclined pretty far back. I'm saying this to say that was my first time in premium select. I was actually really nervous about it. Like, oh, can I actually travel internationally, not in business? Like, this is my bougie side kind of coming out. What am I going to do? I don't have a bed on the plane. Like, what is this? But it ended up being fine. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the experience. I think it helped that we had taken daytime flights. And so even if I had booked the business class flight, it probably would have been harder for me to sleep on the plane because it was during the day, right? And so we booked premium select flights instead of business class. For the way there, I booked it on points, actually. Case, I actually did book it through the portal. I did it because when you have an American Express Platinum card, if you book it through the portal, you get like 35% of your points back. and they actually had the cheapest flight deal on the way there. And so that is one small circumstance where I actually did book it through the portal and it worked great. On the way back, we booked the flights in cash. And
Okay.
so I'm saying this to say that I didn't find the best flight deal in business class, and I didn't take that partially because we wanted a direct flight from Atlanta and we just waited too long to plan this trip. But had I planned it in advance, I would have planned a business class flight on Japan Airlines, Singapore Airlines, or Alaskan Airlines from the West Coast. So that's how I would have done it, but this is kind of how I ended up doing it given the time frame that we had.
Thank you for sharing those details. Because whenever you're traveling, you have to incorporate time and convenience. And I've been that person who has unfortunately booked a trip that you had to get off of the plane and there was a connection. And because the connection was international, we had to actually get our bags and go through customs twice. It was a huge headache. So the convenience is where my mind is, especially as I'm traveling with children and with my husband, then you have to really consider your time and the headache of doing so. So I'm glad that your partner felt comfortable enough, even though you're making the travel arrangements, to tell you how he felt about getting off and having the layover. Cause like, that's not going to work. And Alicia, one of the things that you said that I'm very curious about is how do you do the comparison of using the portal versus not in travel and transferring those points directly out? Because I have booked tickets through the Chase portal before. And I can say that because it's a third party that they use, when there's an issue, there's no accountability whatsoever. And I literally have spent 3+ hours on the phone navigating an issue. And finally, it was resolved, but it was a huge headache and inconvenience that I'm like, oh no, I will not do that again. But what I'm hearing from you is that there are times in which that comparison that you might get much greater value where you may test your luck to say, I know that if there's an issue, it might be inconvenient for me, but the value that I'm going to get by going through the portal is much greater than me transferring the points out. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that decision making and what your thoughts are as you're navigating that?
Yeah. So, like I said, if I could do this trip again, I would book business class and I would transfer the points out. I would not book it through the portal, would not do any of that. The problem is that we just waited too late to decide we wanted to go to Tokyo. And so the business class flight options, a lot of them were not available when I wanted to book the flights. It wasn't until maybe about 3 or 4 weeks away from the trip that we started seeing some last minute cancellations, and some of the business class flights on points became available, but they were not available from Atlanta, which is my home airport. They were available from other cities, which would have required us to take layover or have a non-direct flight. And at that point, my boyfriend was like, hey, we're already taking daytime flights. We're in premium select. It's literally one class below business. Like, I think you can reel in your bouginess essentially, and like, you won't die. There are people who take economy flights all the time, Lisha, essentially was what he was saying. I was like, I guess, maybe I can suffer through premium select. That was part of the problem, was that the business class flights on points were just not available for me to transfer over. If they were, I would have done that. That would have been my preference. With my American Express Platinum card, you get access to flight deals that you may not get if you don't hold that card. And on one of those flight deals, just the flights were cheaper that way. And also, if you use points, you get like 35% of the points back. And so, yes, it was a little bit of me pushing my luck, but I was like, okay, I'm going to utilize points on at least one leg of this flight. I'm going to get 35% of the points that I spent back. I have status on Delta. And so although it probably would have been a headache if we wanted to change flights, we do have status on Delta. And so if we needed to book something last minute or whatever, we kind of get priority. And so I was a little bit more comfortable doing it that way. Now, if I wanted to cancel the flight, get a refund, those sorts of things, then that is a huge headache, booking things through the travel portal. But I felt confident that we were actually going to take the trip, that we weren't going to change the flight times and that sort of thing. And so for me, that risk was worth it. But I only did it for one leg of the flight. The other leg of the flight, we actually booked in cash. Going back years ago, would I have booked that flight in cash and premium select? Maybe not. But because we didn't spend any money on the hotels, we thought, okay, we can splurge a little bit on the flight.
All right. Well, that makes sense. So now you have your hotel, you have your travel.
Mhm.
How do you decide on your excursions? Can you also use points to book excursion?
Great question. I have not used points to book excursions. I usually use excursions as a points earning opportunity. So I will pay with cash and see if I can earn points. And I do that on a variety of ways. One, by booking the excursion on a credit card, but two, usually using a site like Rakuten to get some sort of cash back or get points. And that's what we did. So one of the experiences that we booked was like a go-kart ride through Tokyo. It's like a known thing that you do in Tokyo. You literally get in a go-kart, you dress up in costume, and you ride your go-kart through the city, like, on the highways. It's a pretty fast go-kart, essentially. I know your face is like, "What?" Yes, this is a thing that people do in Tokyo. It is like a known thing. You actually need an international driving permit in order to do it. So we had to go to the AAA center here in America. They have them in all of the major cities and get an international driving permit essentially, and then show that to the people in Tokyo. And then we were able to do this excursion. But we booked it through Viator or Viator, however you say that. And so it's like a travel site where if you want to book excursions in various cities, you can look on there and they'll show you different excursions and opportunities. But instead of going to the Viator site directly, I went to Rakuten first, saw that if I booked the experience on Viator, I got like 15% cash back. And so this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but my point is that I didn't pay for the excursion with points. I was able to earn a good amount of points by buying the excursion with cash. And so went through Rakuten, got I think 15 or 20% cash back on the experience, booked the experience on a credit card, earned the points from that experience, and then went forth.
Awesome. I will have to rethink how I'm using Rakuten because I often don't explore excursions on a Rakuten. That's a great way. And my Rakuten is linked up to my American Express. So I actually earn points instead of getting the cash back. Okay. So that's phenomenal. All right. So what's the next tip? Like, what else do we need to know about traveling in Tokyo or Japan and leveraging credit card points to do so in luxury without paying the luxury prices?
Yeah. So one thing was like just cost saving tips and excursion tips for me. We use the hotel concierge a lot, which is something I had never done before. I actually emailed each of the hotels before we arrived and I let them know that I was going to be celebrating my birthday there. And the reason I did that is so that if there were upgrades available, they would give them to me for free. And also because usually when you let them know, they want to make sure that you have a great experience. And so they will go out of their way to make you have a great experience. And so at each of the hotels, they wrote me a handwritten note, said, "We're so excited to have you. Thank you for celebrating your birthday with us." I got free treats and cookies and Japanese sake and all these things because I told them it was my birthday. And so it was great. I also asked each of the hotel concierge to help me plan various activities from their hotel. And so I got access to baseball tickets. I'm a sports person. I wanted to go to a baseball game in Tokyo, and I asked the hotel concierge to arrange that for me, and they got me tickets. I really wanted to see sumo wrestlers because I know that's a thing in Japan, but they just weren't competing during the time that we were going to be there. I also asked them to make me a restaurant reservation, and they gave me ideas. They told me the prices. They told me, what the cuisines were, and then they made the recommendation or they made the reservation for us. What else? I asked them for like travel tips. Like I wanted to go to Kyoto and I asked them like, how do I get from here to there? And they kind of helped me plan things out. And so one tip that I have is using the hotel concierge, letting them know that you're going to be arriving, what you're celebrating, and they will try to do their best, is my experience, to curate an even better experience for you that you didn't have to pay for. So we got some stuff for free that maybe we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Free wine, free sake, free treats and desserts and things like that. And so that's a tip that I have. So it's not necessarily utilizing credit card points, but utilizing some of the services at your disposal. So that was really great. I wanted to save money on my phone bill. I have an international calling plan. I have AT&T. It's like $10 a day when you use your phone internationally, but that adds up. And I knew we were going to be gone for like 8 days. So I actually turned off my cellular service and bought an eSIM from like Air Allo, one of those companies. It was like $10 for like, I don't know, 15 gigabytes of data. So drastically cheaper than paying $10 a day. And it worked really well. And so my advice for people traveling internationally for an extended period of time is considering getting an eSIM so you're not charged those like daily fees on your phone bill. I have a VPN on my phone, so it gives me access to a lot of my phone apps that only work in America. I mentioned I'm a sports person. I like watching basketball games. And so YouTube TV doesn't work outside of America, but it does if you have a VPN on your phone. And so I purchased a VPN. So those are some of the kind of tips that I have with traveling, is like, what are some ways that you can cut down on costs? For me, a large portion of that is utilizing credit card points and finding really great either flight deals or hotel deals, but it's also using some of these other things like the hotel concierge service, buying an eSIM, purchasing a VPN, thinking about transportation in a new way, like some of those kinds of tips.
Yeah, I love that. I'm taking notes. And I wrote down the eSIM and the VPN because recently when we were in Montreal, my husband couldn't watch his sports games. So this is something that I will make sure that we discuss before we travel. And oftentimes when we travel abroad, I go for my runs and and I have no access of contact. I'm just running in this foreign location that we've gone down the road a couple of times. I've been very observant of the types of people that are around. But again, if somebody takes me, then my husband would not know because there's no way for him to contact me. So this is something that I think is really a great consideration if you want to have contact with people in the US or even locally while you're there. So thank you for that. Anything else that you want to share with the people before we move on to our fun money?
Well, I do have some money confessions. I saved money on the hotels and the flights, if you will, but I definitely spent some money. Okay. So my friends laugh because when I was in Paris for the Olympics, we all went to the Louis Vuitton store and bought a Louis Vuitton bag. And every time I look at that Louis Vuitton bag, it brings back so many memories of me going to Paris with my girlfriends. And I told them, like, this was so expensive. I'm never buying a luxury bag in America. Like, what? This is so much. I'm only going to buy luxury bags if I'm like international. Well, the problem is I travel internationally kind of a lot now. And when I was in Japan, one of our hotels was literally right across the street from the Louis Vuitton store. And I couldn't resist. I didn't have the self-control that I thought I did and ended up buying another Louis Vuitton bag and some other stuff. And yeah, that's my money confession is that, I saved money on hotels, but I also spent money on a luxury bag. I got massage at the spa, which was not free. Some of the excursions we paid for in cash, a lot of them actually from Disneyland to the restaurant to the baseball game. So my money confession is that even though I could have done this trip really cheaply, right? Not spent much money, I ended up spending a good amount of money on some of the experiences while I was there, including some luxury experiences like massages and five-star sushi restaurants and things like that.
Well, there's no sense of going to Japan if you're not going to spend money to actually enjoy the experience, right? You've traveled 13 hours airtime, which is a long distance. So I would expect that you would spend some money. Kudos to you for splurging on a new bag.
Tell my credit card statement that.
Oh my gosh. Just pick up a couple of extra shifts.
I know.
You will have that money back in no time. It's very funny. Bags is not one of those things that I spend money on. In fact, I was just reflecting on just my spending habits. I am not one of those high maintenance women. I don't get my nails done frequently. I'll get a pedicure because my toes look a mess often. Now I'm getting my hair done to save time, but for many years, I styled my own hair. So I'm more of a DIYer when it comes to those types of things, and brands have never really got me. So yeah, I'll have to reflect a little bit more on where I spend my money on myself. I think massages is one of those things. Every month I need a massage. I'm feeling like I need a massage now. So I'm glad that you're able to get that in. A Japanese massage, I'm sure, feels very different than like our regular Swedish hot rocks or hot stones massages. How was your massage experience?
It's funny that you ask. We actually could have booked a Japanese massage. I actually thought about it. But the ones that were offered, at least at the hotel that we were at, was like this different kind of massage where it's like pressure points and you still have
Mm.
like all of your clothes on. And that sort of was not the kind of massage that I had wanted. I think I was craving like a Swedish massage. I wanted a traditional massage. And so that's the one that I booked. But I could have booked the traditional Japanese massage. It's just at that time, that wasn't what I wanted essentially. And so that's not the one that I booked.
Okay. All right. Well, Alicia, you spent a lot of money on fun.
Girl, girl. Okay, I'm funned out. I need to save the fun money at this point.
Well, since you shared, and I'm sure you have more to share, I can go first. Recently, my husband had this idea that we will see John Baptiste again. We had already seen him once in April, but he's like, no, he's coming to Massachusetts again to this place called Tanglewood, which is like this outdoors concert. So all of his family, so our family flew in and we booked a bus and we traveled 2 hours with everyone, went to this concert, and it was absolutely phenomenal. We had lawn chairs, we had picnic baskets, we had a charcuterie board and fruits and all of the things. Didn't come home until 1 a.m. I don't know exactly how much we spent because my husband booked the bus and he booked the tickets, but I did everything else. We spent a decent amount of money to create this experience, but it was so worth it. Our nephew came and we hadn't spent much time with him, especially as an adult. And it was just so refreshing to see the man that he is becoming. So I'm so excited that we got to have that experience. It like gives me warm fuzzies. And my kids were looking at me one night after the family had left laughed. And Brooke's like, why are you crying? I'm like, these are just tears of joy. I'm just reflecting on the weekend. That's how I typically choose to spend money, is trying to create experiences for family. And this is one that I probably would not have booked since my husband and I had just seen John Baptiste, but the concert was great. I mean, everything about it was phenomenal. So I'm really excited that we were able to spend our money in that way.
I'm happy for you. That seems like an incredible way to spend money. And, they say that it's best when you can spend it on experiences. And it sounds like you had a great one. So that's
Mhm.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm still buying material things. So my nephew, because, I've got 3 of them now. I have another nephew with another birthday coming up. And so I've got to buy my third nephew some birthday stuff. So that's what I'm doing. And I bought a lot of my family members some souvenirs from Japan. And so that's kind of how I spent my fun money. And I need to probably give fun money a rest for a little bit as my pockets are recovering from this recent vacation.
Well, you are always a generous spirit in purchasing things for others. So I know that that makes you very happy. And I'm happy to hear you spending money even on material things, but to give to others. So, all right. Well, we hope that you learned something during this episode. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. And we can't wait to see you in the next one. Hello, and thank you for listening to our podcast. And because of that, we have something for you, our Wealthy Minds Blueprint.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I wish I could be better with money? Do you want to start investing and saving for retirement, but keep delaying because you don't know where to start? Our Wealthy Minds Blueprint is here to help.
This guide will teach you what you didn't learn in your training, so you can stop being confused about money and start taking what we call wealthy-minded action.
We'll help you become a master of your finances and simplify investing so you can get started today. Take control of your financial future by downloading your free copy of the Wealthy Minds Blueprint now and start building the wealth you deserve.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Prati Botto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisha Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.